My name is James. I work for the British University in Egypt. Believe it or not, I am actually a professor. I held a chair in applied business at Heriot-Watt University before I came here. So yeah, I spent a bit of time at school myself, and I'll talk to that a little bit during the presentation. So my presentation is, I guess, is kind of open in terms of just generally talking about, well, I'm not going to do too much talking actually. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions. I'm actually going to get you guys to do some talking. But the idea is I would like to explore some of the thinking around why maybe you're going to university, why you think you should do certain degree subjects, the fact that it's not a sort of linear path through your career. It's going to be a twisty-turny path, and that's how life is generally, but certainly your career will be like that as well. Gone are the days of having one job for your entire life. As you get older and as time goes on, you'll find more and more there's this demand to switch around different careers. So I'm going to talk to some of these ideas during this talk. So we're just going to hang on a few more minutes. Hopefully there can be a few more people in the room. Can everyone hear me okay though? Yeah? Great. Great. I've got a little bit of a cold, just the back end of a cold, so I've got a little bit of blocked up nose, so my voice is just a little bit weird at the moment, so hopefully. And if somebody can't hear me, then just tell me and I'll speak a bit louder. So what I will ask quickly is what subject areas are people thinking about studying? Anyone thinking about engineering here? Okay, so I've got a few engineers. Computer science? Okay, great. What else? We've got business. Anyone interested in psychology? Don't worry, if you put your hand up, I'm not going to make you study that, okay? I'm not going to drag you to university and make you study that for the next 5 years. You're okay. Okay, what have I missed out there? Anyone interested in like languages, English, maybe Chinese language, French, German? Okay, what have I missed out there? Mass communications? The arts? Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so quite a variety of different subject areas. That's really, really pleasing to see. We don't want a world just full of engineers. Even though I'm an engineer by trade, I'm an engineer. We don't want a whole world that's just engineers. So I'm standing up here. Anyone want to ask me any questions quickly before we do start? No? I mean, I'm going to ask you loads of questions, so I'm just wondering if you want to ask me any. Lots of you have met me before, so yeah, good. I hope I made a good impression. What I can do, so I think probably most of you have heard my talk about the BUE. I wasn't going to talk too much actually about the British University, but again, if we're waiting a couple of minutes, I might as well tell you a little bit about the British University. So it's a big place. Those of you who came to visit the campus, it's a big place, you know that. Lots and lots of space there. Big faculties. We have 11 faculties, and this is why I'm interested in all these different subjects, because we teach almost everything, which is great. It's really nice to be in a really comprehensive university. It means that we have a lot of diversity across campus. Now, are all of you guys studying IB? Or are you doing IG? IG CSE. Okay, so you're all IG students anyway, that's fine. Again, the diversity piece across the campus is really, really nice for you guys to experience, being with people that have an interest in arts, right through to people that have an interest in engineering. So the very technical through to the arts, that's great. Again, diversity across different subject areas. Well, diversity generally is just really, really valuable for you to experience. So please come in, make yourselves home. We have some wonderful seats at the front. These are the VIP seats, so please come and help yourselves. Come on, don't be scared of sitting at the front. Fantastic, thank you. Morning. Sabah here. Nice to see you all. Okay. So I think when the rest of your group have sat down, I think we can get started. Can I just check, are you guys studying IBs?
Yes.
You're all IB students. Okay, so everyone in a yellow t-shirt, am I right in thinking is studying an IB? Cool, so I've got IBs and I've got IGCSEs. Any American diploma students here? No. Okay, some American diploma as well. Okay, so I've got a mixed cohort. It actually doesn't really matter. It actually doesn't matter. Can I start?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is James. I work for the British University in Egypt. Believe it or not, despite my youthful looks, I'm actually a professor. I am actually much older than I actually look. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today. I guess we're going to have a bit of a meandering conversation about university and about life in general. Okay, so this is going to be sort of, I suppose, predicated on this notion. This is our university strapline. It sounds a bit corny, but it's actually not bad. This notion of learning how to think and not necessarily what to think is actually quite a healthy notion. And actually it's the sort of thing that IB espouses. Yeah? So this idea of learning, you know, how to think for yourselves, how to make your own decisions, how to take information and use that information for yourselves and make your own choices, your own decisions, and necessarily give it to you all on a platter. Okay? So this, we've got maybe 25 minutes now, okay? And I'm going to run this a little bit like a lecture, well, how I run a lecture. So I don't stand in front of a board and just talk. So I used to teach, I normally teach things like leadership, organizational culture, those sort of subjects, okay? What people call the soft skills. They're not soft skills at all, they're actually key skills. And we'll talk to that in a little bit. But when I run lectures, like I said, I don't stand in front of a board and talk at you. We have conversations, we have discussions, yeah? I ask for criticality, I ask for you guys to use references, to use other sources of information and properly reference sources of information as well. So you've got people that have actually done the research, they actually know what they're talking about, not just opinions all the time, yeah? You're entitled to your opinion, but you need to back those views and points with real evidence that's gained from real circumstances and real peer-reviewed documentation. I ask you to be reflective, so I ask you to think about what's going on in your own lives and reflect on that, and that's powerful when it comes to learning. Again, the sort of things that you do start to explore in IGCSE and particularly in IB programs, and I hope in the American diploma as well. And inclusive as well. So I would like everybody in this room to talk. You may have different backgrounds, different interests, different nationalities even, but the idea of inclusivity is powerful. The idea of having different people give different opinions and listening to them and taking that on board is really useful. If you are all saying the same thing, you are not going to get a particularly useful result out of any discussion. You want lots of different opinions, lots of different angles to resolve problems, to resolve issues, to see the world in a more balanced way. So these are just some little concepts around what I'm going to try and do in terms of this. And in terms of actually teaching at university as well, you'll find that the UK education system particularly expects you to work on these principles, to use these techniques, to consider all this. Okay, and that can be quite a big jump. Even at IB level, you're going to jump into doing a lot more of this every single day in a lot of your lectures. Okay? So I started asking, what do people want to study? So I'm going to throw this out to you. What do people here want to study?
Medicine.
So we've got a medic,
Computer science.
some computer science,
Psychology.
psychology,
Aerospace engineering.
fantastic, okay.
Business.
Business. How about, I've got a little group of engineers, I think, here. What were you guys into? Was it business? So we've got some business potential. Over at the back, what are we looking at? What sort of subjects?
Medical degree.
Some more medicine?
Medicine.
Medicine?
Engineering.
Some engineering? Medicine, okay. And I think over here we had a mixture of psychology. Please, ladies at the back, tell me. Pardon? More medicine? Pharmacy, okay, so medical related subjects. And again, mixture, sorry? Biotech? Computer science, okay. Sorry, go on, tell me. Sorry, biotech as well, okay. Okay, so I come to the time to ask everyone, but just a mixed bag of different subjects. So that's great. My question is why? Why do you want to study those things?
Because I'm interested in it.
'Cause
And I like to study, I like to learn about this, what I like, what I see. For me, it's okay.
So this point, so it's something that interests you.
Yes.
That's a great reason. Go on.
I've always had an interest in psychology, and I think learning more about it also helps me understand both my own mind and also other people's way of thinking and stuff like that. That's why I find psychology interesting.
Fantastic. Very, very nice answer. Anybody else? Any other volunteers? Somebody on this side of the room. Why? Why have you studied? Why are you choosing? Go on.
One, because it's really interesting. Two, because I think there's a future in biotechnology. There's a lot of there's a lot of careers in certain areas. There was a time where I was interested in interior design, but I don't want to sound shallow or anything. But there's so much interior designers in Egypt. You got to stand out.
Okay. You've had a sneak peek at my presentation. Anybody else? Tell me. Someone volunteer. Thank you, at the back.
So I want to be a pediatrician, and there's two sides I want to get. The first one is medicine and biology. Just me understanding, understand where what the system is, and I find it interesting. And then for the pediatrician side, I like looking at children and stuff. So pediatrician people.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm getting some lovely answers here. So you've got some nicely well thought out ideas from the people that have spoken up. Is everybody convinced they have a compelling argument for why they want to study? Or are some of you a little bit like, well, I'm not really sure? Is everyone here absolutely sure of why they're choosing it? Okay. Okay. Well, I don't necessarily expect you to be. So these are going to be some lessons from an old man. That old man's me. I'm going to talk. So it's my favourite subject, myself. I'm going to talk about myself. That was a joke, by the way. I'm not really that vain. So this is kind of a list of the stuff I've done throughout my career. Okay. So obviously I started out. I did IGCSEs as well. I was an IGCSE student. We didn't have the option to do IBs, unfortunately, where I was. And then I did A-levels, UK system. And then I did an engineering degree. Now, I have no idea why I did the engineering degree. I'm pretty sure it was just because when I went for the open, they did like open weeks back then. So I went and spent a week doing engineering workshops. And I'm pretty sure it's just because they gave me really nice food and drink at Swansea University. The other university I went to was Imperial College, actually. They gave me a horrible interview, horrible test and exam, and gave me like a little triangle of sandwich and like a little plastic cup with some squash in it. The other university spoilt me rotten for a week, so I think I was kind of bought. But anyway, Imperial couldn't compare to Swansea that I went to in the end. I then stayed on and did a doctorate, and again, I'm not absolutely sure why I did that. They did pay me a lot of money to do it, so maybe it was just the cash, but I'm not absolutely sure why I did that. I then went into steel industry, so the company that paid me to study then gave me a job. I had a pretty swanky job, enough to buy my first sports car, all of that sort of nonsense that, I guess for me at that time was great. Now I retrospectively think, well, actually, why did I do that? But I went into that job, worked 18 hours a day, nearly destroyed myself physically, but learned a lot. And I'll come back to some of the lessons I did learn from that experience. And then spent a bit of time biking around New Zealand to try and get fit again and lose about 20, 30 kilos. Then I became a graphic designer. So I was a bit like, I'm not interested in this. So I was fairly handy with Photoshop, pretty handy with InDesign. I thought I'd go into doing a bit of design work. So found a local sports magazine and ended up doing a load of work for them. Then raced mountain bikes for a bit. Spent a couple of years racing. Ended up running a racing team, quite a big racing team, on the 12 and 24-hour circuit in the UK. Managed to get loads and loads of young ladies, as it was actually, onto podiums, and we became quite famous as a racing team. And then I realised I needed to grow up. I wasn't making a lot of money out of it, so I kind of had to grow up. So I ended up doing a bit of consultancy on the side. The consultancy then gradually turned into an opportunity of a job at a university. And I will say that my salary here was higher than my salary when I went back into this. But I went to this because I knew the guy that was running he was a dean of a university faculty, an engineering faculty, and I knew him. And he was a great guy. Like, he was a really good leader, really impressive leader. And I had absolute faith in him. So I went and took the job with him. He said to me, I'm going to give you 50,000 British pounds. All I want you to do is double our number of international students. And at the time, this faculty had 80 international students. And he said, I want you to double this over the next 2 years. Here's a load of money, just go. I don't want to ever see you. Like, you don't even have an office at the university. Just go and get me my students. And of course, within 1 year, I tripled the number of students. So I was good at my job. But I was flying all over the world. I was just exploring the world, going to events, things like this, but all over the world. And I did it for the travel. I did it for the experience of the travel, and meeting people and gaining a massive cultural awareness. I worked in 50 different countries over a period of about 8 years. And it was just an amazing experience in terms of learning. I then went on, I kept asking for a pay rise, so I ended up becoming the manager and then a director. And then eventually I pushed so hard that they said, the only way we can give you another pay rise is to make you an associate professor. And then all of a sudden, I realized the value of doing that doctorate, because there's no way I could have become a professor without doing that doctorate. So all of a sudden, that investment that I'd made earlier on, that I questioned for a long time, proved to be really valuable. And then I became a dean, and then a professor, and now I'm here. Now I'm here, again, back in some ways to where I was here, I guess, in terms of looking at how to work with young people and encourage them to come to university and make the right choices about going to university. Yeah? And trying to help, counsel and support, and running a team of people that does that.
Which of these were you the happiest during the time you were working in?
I can tell you the ones I was unhappy. Okay? This, I was painfully unhappy. And actually, relative to my, I suppose, relative to my experience and my knowledge, I was probably paid the most then, if you see what I mean. Obviously, it was a smaller figure, but I think relative to my knowledge, it was probably the highest paid point in my career. Yeah? But I was most unhappy. I was working all the time. I didn't have much autonomy. I didn't have much of the things that I needed in terms of me. I was a corporate slave. I mean, I was working for a big, massive steel manufacturer. And trying to get things done in that organization didn't suit me personally. And again, hopefully we'll come to that sort of thing. It's a brilliant question, please.
All of them was happy?
I would say I was insanely happy doing this. Again, and this, I was really lowly paid for this. Sorry?
The most interesting one.
The most interesting one. That would be a combination of this, because it was kind of my passion. Yeah, racing, of course, is kind of, and I was super happy during that as well, admittedly. Interesting, again, possibly this one, because of the travel, because of meeting people. Yeah.
If you had a choice, would you delete or add any of these?
So this is the big question: would I delete or add? There's a couple of things I wish I'd done along the way that I'd made a bit more time for. So I wish I'd put more effort into languages. I wish I'd become a chartered engineer. I can still go back and do the paperwork, but I wish I'd done it at the time. I wish I'd done my chartered marketing. I wish there were a few more letters I would have got after my name, because I just didn't have the willpower to do that little bit more school, I think, effectively throughout the way. And I wish I'd done more of that CPD, continued professional development. Please.
Which one of your professions helped you the most to develop yourself as a person?
So, again, we're back to this one. Terrible time I had there, but I grew. This is brilliant. The questions are great because they're helping me segue into each of the little bits that I want to explore. So I graduated from my doctorate as I was really well sponsored. I was told how amazing I was. The people on that program, there were 10 people chosen across the whole UK to be on that program. So we were all kind of elite. We were told we were amazing. Like I said, well paid. Even for our study, we were well paid. And we were expected to go into the management structure of that corporation. Now, I turned up on my first day, and I went to a swanky office. I was in something called product and market development. I met with my boss. I was wearing a suit. It was all great. Now, the following week, I ended up working at some of the little sites. So I was attached to some of the little sites within the corporation. So I was helping them develop their products all the way through. So I would work with RD&T and help these sites select RD&T projects and take them through to market. And I could requisition anything I wanted. As long as I developed a business plan with the site, I would then take the concept all the way through to market. So I did have a load of power in some ways. Okay, and that concept was great. The reality of it was very different, and that's why I was frustrated and had a terrible time. However, on my first day at the first of those satellite sites, I turned up in my nice suit to a little place up in the Welsh Valleys. Now, the Welsh Valleys in the UK is rough. It's a tough place. Big men who aren't particularly keen on Englishmen. They're particularly not keen on English, arrogant, overpaid PhD students who come in and want to be their boss. So I rock up on my first day, and the manager of the site's like, well, you're the PhD, I'm off. I'm going to the pub. You're in charge. And I'm on this multi-million-pound site, and all of a sudden I'm put in charge. I don't know anything about running this site, of course. Why would I? You know? But that was kind of their punishment. This was kind of their I guess, learning experience for me. It was tough, and they didn't like me. They did not like me. But I would say, by the time I spent 3 years working with these different little places in the Welsh Valleys, I had to spend a lot of time drinking tea with them. I spent a lot of time going out with them in the evenings. I spent a lot of time with them, learning about them, learning about what I needed to do, not coming in my suit, coming in my work fatigues, you know? And I learnt some humility, which was really powerful. I learned how to deal with people that, you know, I guess I thought I was in a different class. The reality is that even if I was, it didn't matter. I needed these guys to work with me, you know, and I needed to be able to communicate with them. I needed to learn to communicate clearly with them and for them to communicate with me. And I learned to do that. And I think that, that learning of humility and that ability then to communicate was probably the single biggest learning experience I've had. I've had thousands, obviously, you know, getting on now. You have lots throughout your life. But for me, that was quite game-changing. So yeah, please.
Was it confusing to switch from one career to another?
Not confusing, no. Because again, I guess coming back to, I suppose in some ways the theme of this, I studied engineering because I could do a bit of maths, I could do a bit of physics and stuff, and I was okay. Obviously, I was okay enough to get a PhD in it, but that was never my skill. My thing was people. So this is why I question mark sometimes now why I did that. And you asked, you know, would I change anything? I don't know. Can I change anything and regret it? I don't think I could change anything because I wouldn't be here right now to be able to regret it. But in reality, engineering probably wasn't for me. I still like to change the world. And
Make a products in engineering.
sorry?
Products in engineering.
So yeah, I was that you're right. So I was focused on, I was doing something that was around product and process, whereas I'm not a product or things and process person. I'm a people person. Yeah? So if you look at the different types of leadership, for example, and management, so the difference between management and leadership, I'm very much around the people, I'm very much around, I suppose, yeah, the psychology and the interaction with human beings and how to work with them, much less so than hands-on stuff, welding, all the rest of it.
Which degree do you believe helps the most with communication with people and interaction with other people, like you said?
I think all of them help. I think all of them help. I think it's I couldn't narrow down one particular subject from that viewpoint. And there are too many other factors for me to be able to say that it would be wise for anybody to take one particular course because communication is everything. Communication is part of what you need to gain, but it's not everything. So I would be guarded in trying to offer advice on one particular area. Certainly something like psychology can give you an insight into that. But any good degree course should include some of these things as well. And then, obviously, if you study engineering, for example, you'll learn how to communicate clearly with other engineers. Whereas if you study other programs, you may not learn how to communicate so well with the engineers. And actually overcoming those sort of challenges is really interesting. And I've developed and worked on degree programs where we bring engineers and non-engineers together at master's level and make them work on projects. And we make them work on projects in really high stress situations. So I ran a program where we took people to Sierra Leone and Liberia at the back end of the Ebola crisis. And we had engineers and non-engineers working together. And my job was to keep them together, keep them in one piece. And it was a massive learning experience for them because the biggest problem they had was communicating from those two different areas. So I realize I'm going to have to step on a little bit. Brilliant questions. I love it. You guys can have a blast at university if you keep throwing those kind of questions. Our academics will love it. Absolutely love it. So what challenges do you guys think you're going to face in the future as a generation?
I think mainly the climate change crisis that's happening.
It's a good one, very obvious, but it has to be said. So I'm with you on that. Anything else? Overpopulation. Bang on. Yep. Although it's interesting because we're heading towards a declining population in many places, and actually there's big worries about the population becoming too small in certain parts of the world. But yes, right here, right now, overpopulation and and go on.
The crash of the
Economic issues. Yep, feeling that like mad in the West, UK, US. It's all happening. That's very good as well. Excellent, excellent. So technology taking over, things like AI, robotics, things that, you know, there's lots of movies about these sort of catastrophic things happening.
I certainly think in business, it's not hard to be successful. It's hard to keep your business successful. So I think the most challenge would be that keeping your business successful.
So keeping your business running, keeping it working, keeping it successful. Yep, I guess that sort of spins off a lot of the other sort of things around economics, around social pressures. Yep. Anything else? Okay. I'm going to put up some scary. So climate change, obviously it's getting warmer in places, too warm in lots of places, and too cold in other places at certain times of the year. Food, sorry, go on.
Lack of empathy because of too much social media use.
That's really interesting, a lack of empathy. That's a really, really nice answer. I think that is a challenge. I think a lack of empathy, a lack of humanity, intolerance, things like that. It's a beautiful answer, really beautiful answer. It's interesting because actually I've asked this question quite a few times. I've not had great answers. And today I've gone from not having great answers to having the kind of answers I would expect and well beyond actually. So fantastic, thank you. So yes, I mean overpopulation, so food shortages are kind of as a result of that. I've just thrown up a few things here. I think for our biotech person here and the pharmacists in the room, you know, things like the COVID, epidemics, those sort of things, can they happen again? Of course they can. You know, and can they happen much worse? You know, we've had terrible diseases over the years, and for various reasons we've been kept safe from them. AI, technology taking over, and the apocalypse. I mean, we are in dangerous times at the moment. The conflict between Russia and the Ukraine and the West's involvement in that is very, very dangerous at the moment. So there's lots going on in the world, and I'm really impressed that you recognize this. Now, I grew up in the Cotswolds. Okay, I grew up in a beautiful little part of the world, a place called Gloucestershire. If you guys have seen Lord of the Rings, if you think of the Shire where the hobbits live, it's very much like that. Absolutely beautiful place. Now, I grew up there, and near us was an American air base where these B-52 bombers used to take off. Now, all these things are for is to drop nuclear bombs. That's their only function. Yeah, they didn't do any humanitarian stuff. They're just killing machines, basically. And I used to hear those things rumble on and off the runway on drills almost every day as a young person. Now, I was very politically aware. My family are very, I suppose, politically astute. My father is. And he pushed me to understand what was going on in the world. Now, I was aware of the Cold War. We had something called the Cold War at the time. Well before you guys. You probably read about it, though. But at the time, there was so much tension between the Soviet Union and the US. We spent our entire lives, I spent my childhood worrying about the end of the world.
Did you fully understand the concept of the World War when you were a kid, or did you understand it more like, as you grew up?
I understood it as a kid, and that was terrifying for me. Now, that is something I hope that no child would have to concern themselves about again. After the breakup of the Soviet Union, you know, the collapse of that, I hope that people wouldn't have to worry about such things anymore. Please.
Do you think that political events in your life have a change?
Have
Your career?
Have changed my career? No, and that's sad. And this is, again, what I'm coming to, I suppose, in some ways. I wish I could have influenced politics more. I wish I'd made decisions that would have allowed me to have more leverage over such things. I feel like I haven't used my talents as well as I might have done. There's no guarantees. And okay, so none of this stuff I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to terrify you or anything, okay? The whole point is that the world is a big, scary place and it's changing, and there are challenges. Some of them outside of your hands, some things could potentially become in your hands. You are, and it sounds cheesy, but you guys are the future. And I'm depending on you to make a much better job of it than my generation has for you. And I'm really embarrassed. I'm really ashamed that my generation has done so little about climate change, for example. When I was little, we knew about climate change. We were taught about climate change at school. You know? We did some stuff about the ozone layer. We did the CFC thing, but we didn't reduce carbon emissions. But everybody knew at the time that there was an issue with burning lots and lots of fossil fuels. And we talked about it for 30 years, and nothing has happened yet. But I've got young children, and I need for you guys to try and secure the future for my young children. And I hope that my generation will try to do something. And I know the generation before, my parents' generation, even worse, they did nothing at all. So yeah, I mean, so what are you going to do? What are you going to do? I mean, what do you think that we need?
I want to know how to make the robots because it will help us in the future.
Okay, so you want to use technology for good, effectively. Okay, that is solid, okay? So the move to electric cars, so again, we're talking about engineering, we're talking about solutions around that. What else?
I feel like we need to educate people on why, like, we need to stop doing stuff like that. Because if we do bring solutions, they won't want people don't want to like use it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Please.
I think
Oh, sorry, I've got two people there. Sorry, at the back first. Sorry, go on.
For me personally, I want to create products that doesn't have chemicals because the ozone layer, the chemicals that we use in our daily perfumes, they have chemicals that affect the ozone layer. So I want to create products that are free from these chemicals.
Wonderful, please.
I think it would be beneficial to prevent social classifications because we're creating opportunities for people that first especially the different social classes because they actually do know more. They
Okay, so you're talking about changing, changing some of the social classification and trying to let people climb the social ladder in effect, or dissolving the social ladder to an extent. Okay.
So the most important thing would be social awareness, in my opinion. Because without social awareness, none of the things that they're saying will come to life.
Oh, the answers today are absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. Like, I want all of you to come and study with me. Like, study with me, you know? Amazing, amazing answers I'm getting here. In fact, way beyond what I expected. Way beyond what I expected. You're absolutely right on so many levels. I think we could have an amazing debate, and in fact, maybe I'll try and arrange to come to your school and we'll just debate for a few hours, yeah? I mean, I've talked about the idea that I think we need some better leaders globally. Not pinpointing any particular country. I can pinpoint the UK because I'm from the UK. We need some better leaders there. And we need some change. And you've made some observations about social issues, should we say, to get the best from people. But I'm always very careful to use the word some. I don't think we need to necessarily go back to the drawing board with everything. There are people that do, but I don't necessarily believe that. Okay? And I'm not going to push too hard on that. So I guess, you know, are you guys going to be equipped for it? I'm getting the feeling that you've got a good understanding, and I think in some ways you are starting to get well prepared for this.
I feel like at this point it's a responsibility for us, even if you don't want to be, you're sort of forced into it.
Okay, yeah.
So I get you.
Yeah, okay. Anybody else got an opinion on this? This is an opinion piece. What do you think? Do you think you're equipped for this? Or, yeah?
As parents, even if we're not going to participate in some sorts of activities such as that, but as parents, we could raise also another generation that's more aware of the problem.
Okay, good. Over this side of the room, any opinions or thoughts on this?
No.
Come on, the IB students are throwing all the answers. I want some IGCSE input. Come on. Sorry, say that again. I couldn't quite hear.
People who choose to do engineering may have a bigger effect on changing this than people who choose to do medicine.
That's not true. That is not true. I think all of you in different areas can have an impact. Again, I think you've got to be careful not to let yourself be siloed into thinking these kind of people change things, these kind of people don't. I'll talk to this in the last slide, actually. But there's not, don't think like that. You can all be agents of change, yeah? And I mean that, like I said, I'm talking about some change. I'm not talking about wrecking the system. I'm talking about doing your bit to try and help make the world a better place, which it definitely needs to become. And I don't think that's mutually exclusive of you having a good time and you earning a dime, earning a decent salary. I think all those things can be done together, okay? There are lots of people who sacrifice their income to do great things for other humans. But you don't necessarily have to do that. Okay, I think there is a way to strike a balance. It's too myriad and complex to definitely give you on the spot. I mean, in terms of your career, in terms of the future, what sort of skills do you think you need? What sort of skills and characteristics do you think are going to be important for your future?
Open-minded thinking. I think biotechnology specifically needs having an open mind. It's research. It's a research-based career.
Mm-hmm.
So
For
we
sure.
need to be open to all possibilities.
Open-mindedness, love it.
Language and knowledge.
Language and knowledge, okay.
By language, I don't mean like the language I actually talk, I mean like culture.
Okay, so
And it provides the communication.
the communication, I think, yes, we're getting towards communication.
For design or arts, I think they need a huge imagination to imagine a lot of designs and arts.
I'm going to back you up on that. Creativity, I think, is a wonderful thing to have and an important aspect. Again, in everything. Don't forget, engineers, you're creators. You know, it's creativity as well as the arts. And I don't place any more value on engineering over the arts, by the way. You know, they both have their place. We need both in society. Anybody else got any ideas? What other skills and characteristics do you think employers are going to look for in you?
I think not particularly overthinking like my decisions, because like there's
there's always a risk that I should take to become a better person. So I think that I should be aware of the problems that might face me and just face them.
That's brilliant. So I'm going to narrow that down just a little bit. Your answer is actually more articulate than mine, but I think the ability just to make decisions. Just to make decisions. Yeah? Please. Pardon? Leadership and patience, yes. One might argue patience is an important part of leadership, in fact. But leadership.
Afraid to face their problems or
Okay.
solve any problems. So we can give like awareness to that to face their problems. And I give them an example for people who were at the beginning were afraid to face it, but then they face it. We can give them lessons to this.
Okay. So helping people see their problems, I think, is what you're trying to say? And yeah, and solve problems, be aware of the problems and solve the problems. So I'm just going to narrow that down to problem solving. Look, I apologize. Normally I would run this in a seminar format, so we'd have almost a circular setup so that everybody can hear everybody, because it's not just me that actually needs to listen. And actually, again, what you'll find is some of the lectures, some of the classes you'll go to will be held in a circular format, such that you listen to each other, because what you share with each other is just as important, yeah? It's really, really important. That peer learning, that bit that you pick up from each other, those experiences, that reflection you can do together is really, really important as well. So it's worth, again, debate and discussion should be encouraged. Again, you've all got different views, different ideas. Listen to each other. So I've thrown a few down here. Open-mindedness. These are sort of, I struggle a bit to put them in order of preference, but open-mindedness for me is super key. Communication for me personally is super, super important. You do need to be able to work in a team. I'm actually not a team player. I'm a massive soloist. However, I do know how to operate in a team, and I can work in a team really effectively. It's not actually my preference deep down, but I am good at it. Adaptability, super important, and you're going to need to be, please.
I have a question. What do you think is more better for you, working in a team or working individually?
It's circumstantial. And even when you're working in a team, there'll be times when you need to operate independently. So you need to be good at both. And being able to solve problems, be confident, make decisions, be resilient. A lot of that is stuff that you really have to face quite strongly on your own at times. There will be times, especially as you potentially get more senior, you will often find that more and more of that falls on you, and you become more and more, in some ways, isolated. It's a little bit sad, and good organizations will shield you from that by allowing you still to have a team. No matter how senior you get, you will still have other people to work with. But there are times when you will be independent. And I could have put independence on here actually, because a lot of organizations still want people that can work independently as well as in a team. That is also important. The ability to be adaptable, I suppose, is part of that. So you need to be adaptable on every level, but you need to be flexible and adaptable. And you'll find that, again, throughout your career, within careers.
I think you need to be more knowledgeable.
So knowledge, without doubt, knowledge is on here. So I would say that's almost a foregone conclusion. So studying your degree, getting the knowledge, so becoming competent in the chemistry, the maths, the physics required to be a biochemist, the engineering, the things you need to be an engineer, your thermodynamics, your fluid mechanics, strength of materials, all of those things. You need all that stuff. But it's all the stuff around that. I have my career, and I've had a really good career. I've had amazing times. I've traveled the world. You know, I'm not boasting, but I've had a wicked time and I've done all right. Yeah? But that has come from having that core technical stuff at the beginning, but a lot of it has come from the other skills, the other stuff. Yeah? A lot of it has come from, I guess, for me, persuasion, negotiation, happen to be skills of mine. That's that people interaction piece. My communication and my open-mindedness and my adaptability, I think, have been other core things for me. But another big piece, I mean, leadership has become more prevalent as I've moved through my career. Clearly, I'm reasonably confident, I guess. I'm always happy to stand up in front of as many people as possible. And one thing I will say to you is gain confidence, The biggest, easiest way to do that is do as many presentations as you can. I volunteered. In my 20s, I volunteered for every presentation I could, even if I knew nothing about the subject.
Yeah, some people were so nervous in the beginning.
Say again?
There's some people who are nervous, are having anxiety.
It's hard. It's scary. It's scary to stand up in front of people and talk about stuff, but massively good for your confidence. And again, employers love you to be able to do that because you need to be able to talk to the big boss. You need to be able to talk to the team on the line. You need to be able to talk to the general public. You need to be able to talk to the press. You need to be able to talk to government ministers. You need to be able to talk to everybody. If you can do that, if you can get the communication, you've got the confidence to present, again, you become a powerful asset for any organisation, whether it's your little own business making teacups out of clay or whether it's working for a mega corporation. Yeah? The final one down there is also super important, is resilience. It's the idea that stuff goes sideways. Yeah? Stuff goes wrong. And it will go wrong in your career. You will get sacked. You will disagree with your boss. You will have bad days. Stuff will go wrong. And you've got to be able to get back up, as they say, get back on the horse and go for it again. Again, super important, that resilience piece. We could talk a lot about that. And I've had, I've had a great career, but I've had downers. There's things that have gone wrong, So universities should start to help you develop these. Okay, that's what it's all about. You learn the technical stuff and the knowledge piece. I'm not detracting from that. You've got to learn the stuff, but it's all the other stuff around it that you need to develop as individuals, yeah? So, again, think about all the extra stuff we talked about. I'm just going to raise just a few thoughts. There are lots of other things you can do at university. In fact, what's interesting is actually this particular cohort, you've talked to some of these. People have mentioned psychology. I've had somebody talk about art, talk about subjects that are sometimes a little bit missed. We tend to think about mainstream engineering, tend to think about business, But there are environmental engineering courses where you will be an engineer, but you will learn more about some of the environmental stuff. You'll learn about sustainability. You'll learn about the fact that sustainability is not just about the environment. There's a societal bit. There's an economic bit. To set up a really sustainable project, you have to consider lots of different facets. It's not just a wind turbine. Just putting a wind turbine up or a solar panel, installing a solar panel, does not give you a sustainable solution. It gives you an environmentally sustainable solution. That will probably collapse because you haven't considered the economic or the social side. Yeah, so you need to think about these things. So again, some of the environmental engineering courses will give you a good basis to think about these things different. We need good leaders. We need people that understand the politics of the world. Yeah? In the UK, we have a big problem because people that talk about politics are the super rich elites that go to certain universities. We end up with the same people in charge all the time because there's not enough people doing political science at different levels. Economics, people need to understand economics. We should all understand macro and microeconomics. Every single person should be taught this. I don't know if it's covered in your syllabus, but fundamentally flawed aspect, I think, is not considering how the world works in terms of money. Yeah? People are very, very naive. Again, I can speak to the UK. Young people do not understand simple concepts of investment. They don't understand concepts like compounding, for example. If you put money aside now, it's worth a lot more money in the future. Now, inflation will mute that. But at the same time, you have to try and counter that with good compounded interest rates, for example. But if you put money aside now, it has a lot more effect on your future than putting the money aside in your future. Just little things like that, little tweaks. But again, understanding economics is really important. We talked to computer science, somebody talked about wanting to do that, wanting to get involved in robotics, understanding the ethics, understanding, if you're going to go into AI, understand the ethics around it, understand the value of it, but how to make it better for us, not just do it to make money for some corporate body, how we can do it and do it in a good way, yeah? Talk about psychology, fine art, law, there's just so many things you can study. So again, learn how to think, not what to think. So, I really appreciate your time in listening to me. I know I've gone over. it's been brilliant. Thank you very much for engaging with me. That's how I like my classes to be. You've had it almost like a mini lecture, mini seminar with me, but your input has been very much appreciated. So thank you very much for your time. Cool. I suspect we don't have time for questions, no? So yeah, I'm going to go back to the BUE booth. If anyone wants to chat anymore, they're more than welcome. Other than that, I wish you all the best. Good luck with your futures.
Thank you.
Thank you.